Good morning. It is August 16th, 2024. This is the OSU Turfgrass Team Times. Online today, we've got Pamela Sherratt, Dr. Dave Gardner, Dr. Xiaowei Wu. It has been an extremely busy week for the turf team. We had the OTF field day on Tuesday. We had the Ohio Lawn Care Association field day on Wednesday, and we had the low input turfgrass field day yesterday, all with varying degrees of attendees, but most certainly a busy period of time as we start to wrap up. Next week, classes start. And so the return or the focus then has to change somewhat. But one thing that has not changed is the impact of summer on our turf grasses. With that, Pamela Sherratt, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to just talk a little bit about seeding right now. So in Ohio right now, the rainfall has been extremely random. We have areas of the state that are under severe drought stress, and we have areas of the state that, as Dr. Nangle was saying this morning, you'd be driving and you have to pull off to the side of the road because the water's bouncing. So it's extremely spotty. Last night we were forecasting Columbus to get rain. We did not. We're forecast to get some rain today. I think probably less than 1/10 of an inch right now. I'm looking out. I don't think we're getting anything at all. So this is, I live in a community right in Columbus, and this is typical of what are a lot of the lawns and verges. I know some people call them the devil strips, whatever they call them. The roadside verges. This is what a lot of them will look like right now. I took this picture of my backyard. As a turfgrass person, I do take pride in my lawn. But when you have kids who constantly play soccer in the backyard, and you've got animals and you don't water, which I don't put an irrigation system out on my yard. This is what it looks like. So the ryegrass has pretty much died out through the drought stress. I've got some bluegrasses and tall fescues hanging on, and then I've got some patches of Bermuda grass that are actually loving this environment, although they also need water, obviously. So we're right at the beginning of the seeding window, mid-August to sort of end of September. And it doesn't look like we've got a lot of relief coming, even though there's rain forecast. Certainly in Columbus for the next few days, it looks like those rainfall amounts are going to be minimal. And so what can we do? We talked a lot at field day about moisture management and what that looks like. Ideally, slit seeding or hollow tining prior to seed going down would be the thing. With solid tining right now and hollow tining, the ground is so hard. I would think that it'd be more prone to breaking those tines off and creating problems with the machine. The ground is so hard right now. Even with slit seeding, I think it would be a challenge. But obviously the goal is seed soil contact. There's different ways of mulching out there. I know in the past as a turfgrass team, we've kind of got the message out that we trying to stay away from straw because it can bring in weed seeds. I would think at this point, try and keep as much moisture in with whatever method that you can. Mulching with a good quality compost or a good quality topsoil is something that you can do. Hydro mulching, obviously, there are biodegradable blankets out there as well as non-biodegradable blankets out there. So when we seed something at the turf farm, we have blankets that we can roll out, and we can get excellent germination, and we can roll those back in and we can reuse those. If they're going out in goal mouths or public spaces or lawns where they're going to be kept in place, you're obviously looking for something that's biodegradable. And the goal of those is to conserve the moisture, which is the big one, to keep the seed in place, and they will also keep the heat in a little bit and raise the temperature by a couple of degrees. And so all of those things combined can really aid turfgrass germination and establishment. From a public standpoint, as I said again, if you're in a goal mouth or something like that where you don't want the public messing with that. Also, you've got to be careful with staples. If you're putting any kind of cover down, you don't want the staples going out there. You don't want to staple down and then kids get hold of the staples and, you know, mess around and poke each other, or somebody gets injured. Somebody's playing on the field and somebody gets injured. So got to be careful of that. But the key right now is moisture management with these things. I know that Dr. Gardner has talked in the past about this window and what it means for weed control. From a seed perspective, the bluegrasses will generally take longer to establish. And so you want to get those bluegrass varieties out now. Now is the time to get bluegrass out leading into early parts of September. Perennial ryegrass and tall fescue that germinate a little quicker, establish a little quicker. You can push that into the end of September. But I would say, and the other guys will probably hopefully back me up on this, but to a T, I always keep an eye on this. We always get a frost about the 2nd to 3rd week of October. No matter what the fall is like, we usually do still get that frost in central Ohio, at least around the 2nd or 3rd week of October. And you want your grasses to be well established, and maybe even have mowed once or twice before we get those hard frosts coming in at the end of October into early November. Saying that, we could have a very warm fall, where we don't get that frost, but typically we do. So has anybody on our turf team this morning got anything to add on that as far as moisture management? Because I think it's such a huge issue right now. It's probably the biggest thing that's going to affect people's success with seeding and sod establishment this fall is going to be moisture management.
Well, I'd agree with that. And so one thing to make sure of is that you have the capability of keeping the upper couple inches of the soil uniformly, evenly moist during the establishment period. And so right now, that's still probably irrigating twice a day. By the time we get to September 1, I can usually get away with watering once at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and everything stays wet all day. It doesn't have to be an inch of water at a time because most of that's going to drain away. It just has to be enough to keep the upper 2 to 3 inches sufficiently moist to aid in germination. That said, you know, an automatic irrigation system helps, or, you know, like if you have a sprinkler, but we hear it every now and again with somebody, you know, like a landscaper in particular, will come in with a water truck and think that they're going to, you know, deliver an adequate amount of water to aid germination. And, you know, a 10,000 gallon tanker truck sounds like a lot, but if you're covering multiple acres, if you do the math, and we won't here because that would bore people, but you're putting out about a 20th of an inch of irrigation when you do that, which is by far and away not enough to actually get the job done. So that's one thing to consider is, you know, if you are going to seed, make sure to have the ability to water, or, you know, just don't bother. You do see contractors throw seed out in November, and when you come back the following year, there's, you know, more than just bare dirt there. You can get some establishment later in the year. It's just if you have standards aesthetically or functionally, then, you know, the window of time that we say is certainly, you know, I would stick to that recommendation. But I don't know, as you say, Pam, in a year like this, if you have an area where you can't keep it adequately irrigated, it might not be a bad idea to delay seeding as long as possible in order to make it more likely that Mother Nature will provide what's needed for the grass to grow.
Thank you.
Pam, thanks for mentioning that. I was about to mention that to my sidewalk. The a little piece of lawn next to the sidewalk was also looks like similar to what you have. I was gone for a few weeks in July, and apparently the grass did not get irrigated, and so it was looking not good now. But my neighbor who did irrigation, we share the same patch of grass, and their grass looks much better than mine. It's a shame for turf entomologists and plant pathologists to have a poor turf at home. Definitely need more care.
I think that's normal, Dr. Wu. I think that's a lot of us spend a lot of time at work and not doing what we should be doing on our home lawns. But you're doing it. An interesting thing that I am going to do. I was talking to a friend of mine at Field Day, and they've given me a mix that I'm going to do, and I'll document it, and we can talk about it here on Turf Team Times. But September 1, I'm going to seed my devil strip with a fine fescue dwarf wildflower mix. I know we have it at trials at the Turfgrass Research Facility. We've seeded some there. But I have the mix, and it's a dwarf wildflower, so it's not supposed to get higher than about 12 inches. I love my neighbors, and I don't want to be introducing ticks to the environment, so it's fairly low. It's wildflowers and grasses, and then it's a fine fescue. So I'm going to seed it September 1, and we'll see.
That's nice.
All
for
right,
sharing.
Pamela. All right, Dr. Wu, follow up.
I just have two things to point out. One is so yesterday we went to Clyde, Ohio for a white grub trial, and we did our first application for the curative trial. Of course, before we did the application, we did some scouting and driving around in the golf course to digging for suitable site for us to do the work. So from what we found is that there were grubs are mostly in the first and second stars, so they are start feeding but do not cause damage. So you cannot say if they are there unless you really dig. And the maximum we found is probably 3 to 4 grubs per cup cutter sample. So that's about equal to about 30 to 40 per square foot. So if you have not put out a preventive insecticide for controlling the grub problem for historical site, or if you have noticed significant the beetle fly like moss chafers and Japanese beetles, you still have time to do it now. Some of the anthratic diamide options, such as cyniprine, the tetrano, and also imidacloprid, and some of the neonicotinoids, such as marit, which is a imidacloprid, and maridine, and arena. Those are all good options to control them. And you may notice that in this picture that in the sample, there is quite some vetch and organic matters built up here. This is a big attractant for the beetles, especially if you have moist conditions that attracts the beetles to lay eggs, because the grubs feed on the vetch layer and acting the vetch layer and feed on the roots and make organic matters and stuff. So if you have more than half inch of vetch, in this case, this is about 3/4 to 1 inch of vetch, very thick. So if you have about more than half inch, I would suggest you do aeration or dethatching. In the fall time is a good time to do that. That reduce some of the past pressure, and meanwhile, it will also reduce pressure from disease carrying as well, and promote improve the drainage of, and also the irrigation efficacy as well. Another thing I want to mention is the fall armyworm. So in the field day a few days ago, we had this week, someone asked me what's the fall armyworm activities this year. So in Columbus, in our night trap, we did not see a whole lot. So we saw fall armyworm adults, but not a lot. However, our mechanic Amy Ronderbush in Worcester campus, and she has noticed some fall armyworm activities. So you may want to watch out in the next 2 weeks, just in case there's a population occurring. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. And if anyone follows Dr. Terry Bielison down at NC State, she put up some pretty interesting / scary pictures of an athletic field down there today. It looked like the fall armyworm was doing damage, and the armyworm had been brought up by Hurricane Debbie. So we'll see, I guess. But yes, Amy Roddenbush did point that out to us. Dr. Gardner.
All right. Good morning or afternoon, whenever it is that you're watching this, everybody. So back in the 1990s, gardening with ornamental grasses became very trendy, and this one in particular was wildly possible popular because it is relatively lower growing and also it's variegated and so it's pretty. Ribbon grass, Phalaris arundinaceae picta was the name of the cultivar. You don't see this so much in landscapes anymore because, well, like a lot of things that we bring from some other part of the world and we plant it here, sometimes it becomes invasive. And so this you don't see in landscapes anymore, but you do still see this guy, fountain grass, Pennisetum alopecuroides. Some people would just call this pretty fountain or pretty foxtail, okay? But it is a nice looking ornamental grass that produces an ornamental effect in the fall. Something else that it also has been doing lately, though, is encroaching on our turf grass areas. And so you will mow and you will see younger fountain grass plants emerging that the grass blades are very tough. And so with a rotary mower, it shreds in such a way that it looks really, really weird from a distance. But then you'll also even get some seed head production. And so this is about the time of year that people start to notice this because this is a relatively later to emerge and develop ornamental grass. And so this is what a patch of it might look like from a distance. So you see how you can see there's a coarser bladed grass, but then you can see the shredding of the leaf tissue and the whitening of the leaf tips. And that's even visible at eye level. Now, quinclorac is a broadleaf herbicide that also controls crabgrass, but conveniently it also controls fountain grass. And so if you have an issue with this, 2 applications 2 weeks apart tends to be relatively effective. You can also use glyphosate, which is a non-selective option, or you can dig the individual plants. Something else that I would also recommend is to just not locate fountain grass near turf areas, and then that problem can be largely avoided. But if you see something that looks like this, shredding grass in your lawn, there is a chance if you see a mature plant of this in proximity that that might be what's causing the problem. Okay, now for crabgrass control, we're at that point in the year where you can use quinclorac all by itself or tepramazone all by itself, or you can mix them a half a label rate of each. You can also mix quinclorac and mesotrione at a half a label rate of each. But you should start to get better control at this point in the year, although as we were talking about, the weather's been a little bit drier, and that makes one, crabgrass control more difficult, and two, recovery of the cool season grasses less. And so this has been more of a problem this year than perhaps the last couple of years when we had relatively more timely rainfalls. But in any event, try to control it now, but then in areas where you have a severe problem, map those areas out and put down your pre-emergence herbicide maybe a little bit later. So target that for mid to late April even, where you've got severe crabgrass pressure this year. Something else that we're seeing a lot of right now is field paspalum. So this is what a dug up plant looks like. And then this is what it looks like in turf. And the really neat thing about this, since it's a perennial, is that unlike crabgrass that comes from seeds, so you have tiny little crabgrass plants in the springtime, with this one, you'll just have big fat mecca leaves poking out of the ground in April. We were at a restaurant in Columbus in April, and when we walked out, even then, you could see these, and I get emails about that time of the year too. It's like, Gardner, what is this weird crabgrass plant that's growing out of the ground? The leaves are already so huge, and it's not crabgrass, it's field paspalum. This is a perennial. Okay, and so you don't have pre-emergence options for this, but tepramazone, Pilex, at full label rate applied once or twice, and if you do it twice, 3 weeks apart, tends to be very effective for controlling the growth that you can see this year. That said, it's a perennial, which means that there's structures underground that make that plant a perennial, and sometimes you don't get enough of the tepramazone underground to get long-term control of those parts. And so go back out in April and make sure that you don't have big fat leaves poking back out of the ground again. If you do, then you might want to hit it with another round of tepramazone at that time. This is also the time of year that we normally see yellow nutsedge really, really visible, although with the drier weather that we've had, this is a plant that enjoys a little bit more precipitation than we're getting this year. So this is maybe a little bit less of a problem than we would see in normal years, although where we've had just enough rainfall, it has definitely a competitive advantage over cool season grass. So like in my lawn, for example, the grass is green, but not really growing. The nutsedge is green and about 5 to 10 inches taller than the grass is. It's kind of annoying. Okay, but not only yellow nutsedge, but particularly if you're on a golf course, you might notice Kalinga. So Volspring Kalinga is another sedge species that is relatively newer to Ohio. This one is even, kind of a hassle if you have fairway height turf, but there are a variety of different sedge herbicides on the market that you can try. So, Sulfentrazone or Dismiss is one that I would recommend. It's a little bit quicker to act, maybe at the expense of its long-term control. So say people, personally, I've been pretty satisfied with my long-term control of sedge with that product, but then all of these others have the same mode of action. They behave similarly. So Sedgehammer, Solero, and Archon. Archon is the newest of these. This is a liquid formulation of Vexus. So pyrimesulfan is the active ingredient. If you're familiar with a product called Vexus that you applied as a granule, well, Archon is the liquid formulation of that. And I found that control is relatively more effective with the sedges with the liquid formulation. For creeping bentgrass, if you're trying to selectively remove that from a lawn, so this is something that we, perhaps deal with at this time of the year. If you're going to use glyphosate, that's perhaps the easier way to handle it. So you go in, you apply the glyphosate 1 to 2 weeks prior to seeding, and then, apply the seed and go. With the mesotrione, you need 3 applications 2 to 3 weeks apart, or 3 weeks apart if you have a lot of ryegrass in the lawn, because mesotrione is a little bit more phytotoxic to ryegrass, but 5 fluid ounces per acre, 3 applications. A note about that. 5 fluid ounces per acre is not a large rate, right? And so if you're trying to do this out of a pump action backpack sprayer, the chances that you're going to apply that accurately are basically 0, okay? You can try it, but in order to accurately deliver a rate that small, usually you have to recruit a lawn care professional to assist you with that, okay? But 5 fluid ounces per acre, 3 applications, 2 to 3 weeks apart. With the 3rd application, first you put the seed down, then you rake to cover the seed with soil, then you apply the mesotrione, then you put the mulch down, then you water. And if all goes well, magically, 1 to 3 weeks afterwards, depending on the species that you seeded, you'll start to see the grass germinating. But depending on the rate of mesotrione or how you applied it or the weather conditions at or after application, the seedlings might emerge stark white, and you'll be scared by that. But the grass always grows out of that injury, whereas the weeds that you're also attempting to control will not, which is kind of cool. So mesotrione is unique in that it's a pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicide, but when used as a pre-emergence, grass can grow through it. Turf grasses can grow through it, but most of our other weedy species cannot. Now, a question came up, if I'm trying to remove creeping bent grass after I've killed it with the mesotrione, do I have to remove the bent grass? And the answer is no, as long as you have an ability to, as Pam was talking about, ensure proper seed soil contact. If anything, if you can slit seed into the now killed patches of creeping bent grass, that will serve as your mulch. And so you don't have to worry about applying a mulch. You can just let the dead bent grass serve that function for you. Another question that arose was, what do you apply first, the mesotrione or the mulch? You put the mesotrione down first because you want that at the soil surface. If you apply it on top of the mulch might bind the mesotrione, which will reduce the effectiveness of the product. And that's what I have for this week.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. A couple other things to follow up on. So the annual OTF scholarship outing is coming up. If you want to play at York Punch Club, just north of Columbus, that will be something that will go towards helping the program. Also, the ATI Turfgrass Scholarship is on October 7th. That outing is at Westfield, over at Westfield Centre on the North Course. And you should follow updates on website links as far as getting involved with that. One other thing to make mention of with the discussion of renovations and all the approaches, Dr. Zane Roddenbush, when he was here, did a very nice series of videos, and we have them posted on our YouTube channel, going through all the steps for establishing your new lawn. And he actually did it on his own lawn when he was going through it. So it was a self-test, but it goes through all of the processes you should be incorporating to get that successful establishment all the way through to that first or second mow. So if you get the opportunity, take a look at that. Finally, just one other reminder, December, I want to say 10th through 12th is the OTF conference in Columbus. We've been busy putting together the content for that, and it will be, there's going to be some changes this year as far as how the event will run. pretty excited with it, and we look forward to seeing you all there. With that, I would say thank you to everyone, and we'll talk to you all next week.